Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna start this off with a little word of advice to all the sensible people. We're gonna get some weird comments for sure. Let's not try and provoke these people any further than we already will. Instead, let's have some fun. Take a shot for every slur. Take a shot every time you hear libtard or snowflake or anything like that. And just anyone complaining in general, don't feed into that shit. Just, you know, take advantage of their nonsense and turn it into something fun for you, ladies and gentlemen at home or other at home. I don't know. I don't know you personally. I don't know how y'all identify. Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a very special and very different episode of the Metal Meltdown. We're not going to be bitching and moaning about the new fucking Atreyu album or whatever today. We're talking about something just a touch more important. We're talking about homophobia within heavy metal, or more specifically, bigotry within heavy metal, racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, sexism, xenophobia, all the phobias, all the isms. We like to joke around sometimes on the Metal Meltdown. I can be an edgy fuck sometimes. I'll be the first to admit it. But off camera, these are all issues that are deeply important to me. And that's why I'm honored to have you on the channel, Adem. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you very much, Robert. Well, it is definitely a pleasure, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Introducing myself a bit, I've been in the underground since 2005. I came in from the Marilyn Manson direction back in 2004, and I've been in more than one subcultures. I've been a metalhead, and now I can consider myself an ex-metalhead. I'm Goth. I've been in that since 2005 as well. I've been a little bit in the back in the 2000s, a teenager, the new metal thing, the Slipknot, Disturbed, Kitty, that movement. That was kind of a subculture of its own. I've been into some the southeastern European pop scene, been into that for a bit. So I've got a lot of experience when it comes to music, and I have found, unfortunately, of all the subcultures I've been involved in, the metal one is the most problematic. It's the one that I've got the most to say about. So before going into that, I want to first of all express my gratitude to you, Robert, for allowing this to happen. I think that's really brave. There are so many metalheads out there that know about these problems, but instead they put on blinkers rather than trying to educate people past these issues and resolve them. And also, because this is a Canadian channel, I want to thank the First Nations people, and I want to recognize that I'm a guest on this land. And I also would like to give just a slight disclaimer about if there's a lack of eye contact between the two of us, it's partially because I'm reading those notes. As you can tell, the metal subculture has lots of problems.
Yeah, I'd like to also point out, ladies and gentlemen, first special guest they've ever had that's like, I'm going to prepare a goddamn essay for this. Everyone else is just like, yeah, I'll talk about Motorhead for 5 minutes. Love it, though. 100% love it.
Thank you. So I do want to pardon the lack of eye contact. Also, you said too much eye contact, Robert, does bother your autism. So you're welcome to address that if you want to. And also very important, in my mind, I've got two audiences. So when I use the word you or your, it could be you personally, Robert, or it could be the metalheads, the people that I love so much. Not. So I've got two audiences happening, maybe more than one. So just be careful about how you interpret the word you, because it could be you, could be you, could be anyone.
Absolutely.
And the last thing that I do want to say is that, actually two things, is that we're not afraid of bad comments. If people want to comment homophobia, racism, sexism, any kind of bigotry, go for it. We don't care. Go ahead and make a video response if you're brave enough to do that.
You know what? Please do that. Please. Oh my God.
Also,
oh no, free advertising. Whatever shall I do?
Well, exactly. Capitalism at its best. And if people want to comment these homophobic, pro-varg and things like that, or these comments rather, at least don't be anonymous. That's a problem I find with these people. They're so anonymous because they know that the world hates them. So don't be anonymous. At least have your real name, your profile picture. Just shows how beautiful you look. So I can spit on that face.
It's YouTube. To be fair, it's YouTube. We're gonna get. I don't think anyone in general is using their real name on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And and also the last thing I want to part of this whole disclaimer stuff is that the stuff. One thing that's bothered me a lot about metalheads, whenever I talk about these issues, they always say, "Oh, but that's not the majority of the scene." And I'm thinking, okay, well, it's easy for a cis straight white man to say that, but for other demographics, that's not quite the case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sick of hearing this, because whether these people are the minority or the majority, the fact that they exist is problematic.
Exactly. And I'll concede right off the bat, it's something I've been guilty of kind of doing in the past. Just like, yeah, well, there are instances, and like, I don't know if it was maybe just me being younger and less aware or whatever. I think a part of it is like Toronto's a pretty progressive city. So like going to metal shows, you see like lots of different audiences for the most part. But yeah, it's something that I think it's ignorant to just kind of go, oh, well, in general, it's like, well, if it happens once, then that means it can and will happen again. It really is just that simple, folks.
Well, and continue to happen. I mean, I've been in and out of the subculture since 2005, and I don't see that huge of a difference. I do see some differences in the bands, and we will talk about that later when we get there towards the end. But in terms of the fan base or metalheads as a whole, as a subculture, there's a lot.
It's something.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start slowly. For I know that some of your audience can be a bit stupid, so I will start slowly for them. So we can talk a bit, things like
8,000 dislikes right there.
Perfect. So if one thing that I really don't like is the amount of pessimism, people always disagreeing and leaving hate comments. I know you can talk about that, you have on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that, the ego, a lot of metalheads think that they're intelligent. They think that because they've discovered the genre, they've reached nirvana. They think that there's no other genre aside from metal, and that's so stupid and so egotistical, because there's so many genres out there that do so much for people, including metal. I especially hate people thinking that they're so intelligent. I mean, there's one 17-year-old boy online who once commented saying he thinks that metalheads are the most intelligent people on the planet. And I really wanted to challenge that, but then I thought, this is a 17-year-old boy.
He's 17. Leave him alone.
Exactly. So I thought,
if I can even speak from experience there, when I was like a really young teenager, maybe first year college, I was just like, oh yeah, if it's not thrash or death or grind, I don't give a fuck. And then I went to college, and then I've moved downtown and went to shows downtown, and it's like, oh, there's a lot more going on than just riffs and lyrics about beer and tits. There's a lot more going on, not just within this genre, but within music.
Yes, exactly. And also, people casually throwing the term gay, and I'm actually pointing at the Rotting Christ member, Sakis, however you say his name, so we'll be poking at Rotting Christ a bit, along with Emperor and a couple of other bands.
I remember hearing about that Rotting Christ thing, actually. It was about a month ago, wasn't it?
Well, the one I'm talking about goes back to the 2000s when I was growing up, so I remember it.
Okay, so this is not a first-time deal. Cool.
No, it's not first time. There's a lot of hypocrisy. It was in a documentary, and as I said, I will, go more into the details when we get into the racism segment, because basically my presentation, if you want to call it that, is tackling 4 issues in 3 segments: racism, homophobia, and the last one's about sexism, and that also includes the topic of metalheads infiltrating other subcultures, and that's also very problematic. So I will, get into that. And one thing I do want to quote, one thing you've said, Robert. You've said the word poser has become so overused in the metal scene that it's lost its meaning.
Yeah, it's just a word people throw around. It's gotten to the point where sometimes on more controversial videos, I'll be called a poser and an elitist in the same comment section. And I'm just like, guys, it's either one or the other. I can't be both. By definition, I can't. It's, I don't know, just like, he tucked his shirt in, poser. Like, that's why Death Heaven are called posers, because they tuck their fucking shirts in. Like, it's like, what the fuck?
I'm sure growing up in Canada, you've also heard the saying that, here, look at my hand, when you point the finger, three are pointing back. And that's the case with metalheads. I'm here to point out those fingers. So they call people posers for such petty and stupid reasons, such as you don't like the same bands they like. Mercury retrograding my mouth. You don't like the same bands they like. You don't agree on certain albums. Tucking the shirt in, cutting your hair a bit short. That makes you a poser. But nobody talks about, for example, people who wear pagan iconography, and they don't believe this kind of thing. They only use it as a fashion or to be provocative or transgressive, and that's being a poser, in my opinion. That's textbook poser,
which is ironic because so many metalheads would argue, oh, fashion has nothing to do with metal. That's simply not true. It's exactly. I can say a genre's name and there's an image that immediately pops into your mind. Like I say new metal and people immediately picture like some fucking bulky white dude in a jumpsuit with a mask or dreadlocks. I say fucking or I say thrash metal, and there's an image of like a lanky teenager with bullet belts and like a municipal waist hat. Like metal's all about fashion. Like I don't know, if it weren't, you wouldn't care that Death Heaven doesn't wear the Emperor Mayhem black metal makeup. If it weren't,
exactly. So it's very hypocritical, and also we'll get into this more to the sexism stuff. When you look at a lot of the particularly women, I find in symphonic metal and melodic black metal, they dress a certain way and they call themselves goth, and they don't listen to goth music. And we will talk more about that when we get into the homophobia side as well, because back in the 2000s when I was growing up, so many emo men took interest in metal because they listened to bands like Pantera, Megadeth, Slayer, all that introductory stuff. So when they go onto metal forums online, they would get bullied, and especially because most of them are bisexual. But when it comes to those symphonic metal and black metal girls, posing on Instagram, I block maybe 3 of them a week because they'll want to follow me. And, no one says anything about it. Nobody says, oh, you don't listen to goth music, how can you call yourself goth? No, instead, they get all the sweethearts and sexy comments, which is so hypocritical. So we'll be talking more about that. And of course, putting Varg Vikernes on the pedestal, I mean, scum of the earth. I think he's worth nothing. Hopefully that angers people. Shame on Norway for allowing a man like that to be loose and putting out albums. I'm absolutely allergic to Scandinavian socialism. I think it is stupid. I think that their laws need to be more strict, especially around scum like that. And, I also want to talk about the Emperor show that just happened not very long ago when they recruited Faust, or Faust, however the fuck you say his name. And,
I think it's Faust. I think.
I couldn't care less, as far as I'm concerned. on. And, and I especially want to give, kind of a hello to the 2 people from the Hellbent for Metal podcast. They're based out of the United Kingdom. And that podcast is basically an LGBTQ plus metalheads podcast, and they made a whole episode about this issue, saying that by recruiting this man for the show, which I believe is a capitalist tactic, to capitalize on it, it's like a slap to the face to gay metalheads, because he's never addressed this issue. He's always, how here in Canada people say, it takes off with the tail between his legs. That's exactly what he's been doing. So we'll be talking about that. So, and also, I find that metalheads can be very hypocritical when they fight for freedom of speech. When you criticize people like that, they say, oh, it's freedom of speech for you to judge. But I'm sorry, there's certain things you're not allowed an opinion on when it comes to, a person's sexuality, a person's form, meaning cis or trans, a person's ethnicity, heritage, all those things. As they say, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. You can't have an opinion on that. So,
as I've said it a few times on the Metal Meltdown, freedom of speech does not equate to freedom of consequence. If you say something fucked up, expect to be held accountable.
Well, exactly, and it's a matter of education. Now, so before, hopefully that was a light introduction to your idiotic subscribers. Well, not all of them. Some of them are lovely, but the ones...
I'll give the Metal Meltdown audience a little credit. They're for the most part a pretty respectable bunch.
Yes. So before going into that, I want to, briefly talk about 5 scenarios that I've experienced in real life here in the Vancouver, British Columbia metal scene, some in the 2000s and some more recently. So one experience that I've had multiple times is when I go home at night nobody talks to me on the train. They will congregate together, all cishet white dudes, but or blokes, some call themselves, and nobody will talk to me. And I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, all right. So, and I don't usually look like this when I go to a metal concert. I look more like a metalhead. That's just me being in different subcultures. I enjoy different genres. I dress in different ways and things like that. So I find, they will congregate together in this, fraternity, as I sometimes call it, even though I'll be wearing, the same t-shirt, same whatever. And, I just get treated like I'm invisible. I want to talk about a death threat that I received back in 2008 and how interesting this man was a Cannibal Corpse fan. And I do want to mention I'm keeping identities anonymous to protect the guilty. So this was back in 2008. I got into this quarrel with a man that I hung out with once. I met him online and, I thought he was a friend. But after we met, I think he began to sense my homosexuality, even though I was not attracted to him in any shape or form. To me, he was another person. And so he kind of began to sense it. So after we met that day, I've noticed he started treating me differently online, and he started being more aggressive, more awful. This was, like I said, back in 2008. And he ended up sending me a death threat because I quarreled with him and with his girlfriend. He sent me a message saying, I ended up calling his girlfriend a bitch because of something that she had said. And he said to me that I'm lucky he doesn't know where I live, because if he knew my address, he would show up, murder me, and he would serve the sentence. And back then I was 15 years old.
Jesus Christ. You were 15?
Yes.
Oh my
God. I never thought anything of it. I mean, now as an adult, I'd be calling the RCMP, when it comes to death threats, especially from a metalhead. They're going to want to investigate, right? But back then in 2008, I never thought that. I was 15. I thought, that his bark's worse than his bite. So I thought, whatever. So that was one issue that I had. And in 2000...
It's disgusting. I mean, it's you're God, I can't believe I have to say this, but if you're like threatening to kill teenagers, fuck you. It's
well,
wow.
He was a teenager too at that time. I mean, just for the sake of being honest.
Oh, okay, all right.
But the next story I'm going to tell you involved men. I was a teenager. It happened the following year in 2009 at a metal concert, and I was bullied by two men. Those men looked at least 38. They were, very mature looking. They were quite big. They were bald. So, of course, when men bald, it means they're at least 35, but for the most part, at least. So they were older. I don't know why they chose to bully a teenager. So what they did that day is, and by the way, this chair needs to be replaced. So if it's a bit squeaky, I'm sorry about that.
It's all good. No worries.
It's an old chair. Anyway, so what happened is I was at the concert. I was close to the front, near the stage, and they decided to push me. From the back, they decided to push me. And at first I thought, okay, men are weird. Maybe they just want to say hello, whatever. And I laughed, and then they continued to do it. And then I realized they've got some malicious intent. And I thought to myself, okay, that's not good. And the thing is, I know how to defend myself. I was, taught so years ago. But the thing is, at a concert, if you defend yourself, you're seen as being just like them. They will escort all of you. All of you are guilty of fighting in the venue. And I did, I think as growing up with a very conservative mother, I've always been very cautious about, being respectful, being dignified and things like that. Just comes with being, or having a conservative upbringing. So I actually took a joke with the man, because the thing is, on my father's side of the family, most of the men are bald for some strange reason. On my mother's side, we tend to have hair like this, those curls and the waves and stuff. But on that side, the men tend to bald. And so I took a joke with them, and I said, you remind me so much of my uncle, because when I was a child, I used to visit Montreal, which is where my paternal family live. I had a few uncles, actually, that used to play with us in the pool. We'd be swimming, and they'd be pushing us. It was playful. And the man said, oh, well, I'm not your uncle. And then he pushed me again. And I thought, okay, no, this man does not want to joke. As Ellen DeGeneres once said, we have to be clever in this town. So instead of defending myself, what I did is I pretended that I was looking for someone, like this kind of thing. And I pretended to point out this imaginary person, and then I left the scene completely, and I went to another side of the venue and enjoyed the show the rest of the show from that side. And so that's one incident that I've encountered. Now, I also want to talk about two other things. These things have to do with the insecurity of metalheads, especially those who are not white. Some of them have the what I call internal racism. They feel inferior. So I will talk about that one in a second. The first one I want to talk about is this was at a concert. I was going to see Amon Amarth about 6 weeks later. There was that concert back in 2019. Amon Amarth, Arch Enemy, Grand Magus, and
That would have been the tour of At the Gates.
yeah, At
Yes.
the Gates, that one. So I saw someone wearing an Amon Amarth t-shirt, and I thought, oh, maybe I should go. Wonder if he's going. Ask him if he's going to the concert. And so I did, and he looked at me like this. He couldn't really talk. He got really paralyzed. It was like the devil was coming to talk to him or something. And I thought, okay, you definitely have some insecurities. So I left. And I also had another experience. Going back to this was a white man, mind you. So, but this next person I'm going to talk about is a Chinese woman. Oh god, this one reeks of insecurities. What happened is this was actually at the Amon Amarth concert. I have these t-shirts that I custom make that go 6 albums and a cross.
Mm-hmm.
You might have seen them on Instagram. I've got goth ones and I've got metal ones, depending on my mood. And so what happened is that day I was obviously wearing a metal version of that t-shirt. It had the 6 albums. And this woman came up to me and she complimented it. She said, I like your patches. She thought they were patches. And I said, thank you. And, we were in 2 separate queues. I was going this way, or line up to sound more Canadian. But anyway, so I was going this way and she was, queuing that way. And, but later on I saw her and I approached her. I thought, oh, she seems nice, nice. I'm so naive sometimes. And I went to talk to her. I said, thank you again for the compliment. I told her about how I make the t-shirts. I told her how much it costs me. And I also told her that when I make them, I always make sure to support the bands, because when you do that, it is a form of bootlegging. So least you can do is at least own the album, even if it's digital from Bandcamp, at least own the album, show your support to the band and go to the concerts. Don't, steal.
Bandcamp's becoming one of the best ways to support artists directly as well. It's great service.
Absolutely. So, so I was telling you about stuff like that, and she didn't even reply. She kind of, and it's not that she's got a bit of an ESL accent, but she understands, she understands what I'm saying. And she kind of, I can't think of the expression, brushed me off kind of thing, just didn't really care. And I looked at her and I thought, okay, now this woman definitely reeks of insecurities. But I took it with a pinch of salt, because it's not my first time that, or not the first time that I experience people having internal racism in the metal scene. But get this, later on I got involved with someone who knows her personally. And this person said to me that woman hates Chinese people. And on social media, she has a lot of racist things about Chinese people and, things like that. She basically, I guess you could kind of say she thinks white people are better than her people.
Weird.
And I know, yes. I mean, not surprising. You find a lot of scum like that in the metal scene. So, so those are some stories I wanted to talk about. Oh, sorry, I hit the microphone.
Is this something, I mean, I know you have these specific stories, but is this something you see regularly from when you're going to metal shows?
Oh, absolutely. Even I was joking with that friend of mine. I said, if she was talking to a Scandinavian blonde man who's maybe 6'5" and had a Norwegian accent, long hair, she'd probably go to the women's lavatory and touch herself. Probably a bit different. So going more into the racism side of it, I think now we can start with the first segment. Is so this is not easy for me to talk about because it brings back some really triggering memories. So I want to talk a bit about the NSBM movement and stuff like that, and people who support people like Varg, wanking Nez and things like that. The thing is, I come from a very mixed background. You can tell the way I look is very ambiguous. I don't look perfectly one thing. I'm not totally white, not totally brown. I'm just really, really mixed. I'm Turkish, English, and Lebanese. My father's side of the family come from Lebanon, whereas my mother is 3/4 Turkish, 1/4 English. So, all of that was in the picture when I was growing up. So, so I can speak. I mean, how many people can say 3 very opposing bloodlines like that in one sentence? It's not a common mix. So, growing up with my mother, she had the very secular values, the very kind of very typical Turkish, stereotypical European values. You know, she is not religious. She's, you know, uh, let's say she's an ordinary woman, as subjective as that may sound. And my father, on the other hand, the Lebanese side of my family, are very stereotypical Middle Eastern, very Muslim. I haven't seen them since 2004 because I was threatened with death by my father when I was 12 years old. He said, if you ever happen to be gay, I'm going to decapitate you in front of the neighbors, and I don't care if I'm taken to jail. I always get that reaction when I say that story.
Jesus.
I know, so I've never seen him ever since, of course. And so anyway, so that's the kind of family that I come from on that side, unfortunately. I'm not saying all Middle Eastern people are like that, but many of them are. And so the point that I want to make is, you know, him being, you know, very homophobic, also very anti-Jewish. When you're into those, you know, Arab, all Muslim cultures, but especially Arabs, they've got very strong anti-Jewish, anti-Israel sentiments. Does that not sound familiar? A bit like black metal? So
Yeah,
you know,
there's a fascinating relationship. Well, fascinating is the
it's
wrong
called
word, but
fascism.
yeah,
And
there's a yeah, there it is.
yeah, it's called
Um,
fascism, and it comes in different forms. And that's my point. That what I want to point out to those NSBN, you know, rubbish, whatever you want to call them, is that when you behave like that, again, you, not you, Robert, but you, that audience,
mhm.
when you behave like that, you're not representing a country, because, you know, Norway, Sweden, these are quite advanced countries. They're very similar to the United Kingdom and Canada and Australia and America and these countries. I mean, it's part of the West. So when you behave like that, you don't sound like someone from an advanced country. You're not representing your country well. Instead, you sound like an uneducated, traumatized twit who comes from a bloody third world country and is, you know, has gone through war, is, you know, uneducated. And that's always kind of made me wonder, because I read The Lords of Chaos back in the 2000s, and I do know that Varg Wankingness was influenced a lot by his environment, because he spent time in Iraq when he was growing up. So
Mhm.
I kind of wonder, because me being half Middle Eastern, like I said, I noticed some patterns with that behavior. So sometimes I wonder if, you know, growing up in that awful environment, you know, did something to his psyche and he didn't get help for it, and then he decided to make the Nordic version of that.
It's
Only,
very likely. I mean, I've never done a ton of research on Varg Vikernes,
yeah,
but it would explain a lot. Like that kind of hatred, that kind of I don't know, there's no better way of putting it,
yeah,
evil. It's not born in a vacuum. You don't decide to just burn down churches and create a cult where you convince all your friends to kill people. That idea does not just pop into your head one day. And if it does, then holy goddamn shit.
yeah, exactly. It's definitely very coming from fascist upbringing, and or, you know, influence rather. And I also want to talk about there is this documentary called, I believe it's called Black Metal, at least it says so on YouTube. This was done back in 1998, and there's this Dutchman who says that um, he would not want to be involved in the scene if it had African people. And I find that so hypocritical, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe Hellhammer is his name, that drummer from Mayhem or whoever. He's half Moroccan,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, and I was told that he's got these kinds of views as well, which I find to be strange if they're true. Um, you know, I mean, it's so hypocritical. I mean, you see what I mean by when they call people posers, you know, that you point the finger at third pointing back. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so much hypocrisy in this scene.
And you know, they think that they're doing this to keep the genre pure, to keep it true to its roots, but in reality it's making sure that the genre dies. Like I mean, this is slightly going off topic. I think metalheads forget that genres don't die because they get big. They die because they get small. Glam
Well,
metal, you know,
yeah,
and that's what black metal wants to, like, glam metal died because it couldn't keep up with the times. And that's partially what happened to black metal for a while. It couldn't keep up because it was getting
yeah,
narrower and more small-minded and bigoted. And you had some bands like Dimmu Borgir, Cradle of Filth, that were kind of expanding it, but for the most part, black metal was just like, no, you're either with us or you're against us.
yeah,
And that ideal, if black metal dies, it'll be that ideology that kills it.
yeah, exactly. Well, also that thing about metal in general, I always say it's so vast but so narrow at the same time. I mean, people think
Mm-hmm.
it's vast because because there are nearly 100,000 bands listed on Metal Archives, but realistically, most of them sound the bloody same. So it's vast but so narrow.
Oh yeah, and the subgenres get like so stupid at a certain point. Like it's like, oh, this isn't porno grind, it's gore grind, and I'm like,
yeah, it sounds similar.
okay.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the guitar only has 6 strings. I mean, how many riffs can one play? And also want to mention that African or musicians of African descent do exist in the metal scene. I can think of 2 bands. Evil had an African British man. He died, rest his soul, years ago. I forgot his name. That's awful of me. And Oceans of Slumber. I can't remember if they're doom or progressive. I believe they're doom metal. I can't remember.
They're kind of somewhere in the middle, in my opinion.
Okay, they've got the Afro-American frontwoman.
Mm-hmm.
So they do exist, and I don't see why they can't exist. I mean, if they like the music.
Oh yeah, and you don't even have to look this to like, you can go back to like the mid '80s when you started seeing like more African pop and rock singers. I mean, even with someone like Slash, I think a lot of people forget Slash is a African American man, and he played. Yeah, Slash. Yeah, and he played guitar for one of the biggest rock heavy metal bands of the late '80s, early '90s. And I don't know. I've met a lot of like young African and Black people that are like, oh yeah, I got introduced to a lot of guitar driven music through a band like Guns N' Roses, and more specifically because of Slash. Like African people in music, Black people in rock and metal, it's not a new concept. You can even go back to Little Richard, the true king of rock and roll, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, and Jimi Hendrix and stuff. Also, I just remembered, I believe Divine Heresy had an African American man in the band back then. When I saw them, he had left, so that's why I'm thinking I might be mistaken. And I also want to kind of poke at this one community. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Amino. It's a lovely app. I use the TradGoth app quite often. There's also a metal app. I don't know. I didn't like the app too much. I ended up leaving it. And one of the reasons was that they've turned February into Black Metal Month, which I think is
Ooh.
awful. Yeah, I find that
that's so wrong for so many reasons.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I left. And how interesting. I think I joined in February, mid-February as it was happening. I was thinking, that's kind of strange. I mean, Black History Month is supposed to be about commemorating and understanding what a lot of African people went through with slavery, and to me it's self-explanatory.
Yeah, and instead we're going to use it to talk about Dark Throne or whatever. Like that's disgusting
and stuff like that. So it's very disgusting. I was disturbed. So shame on them. Whatever that app is called, metal app, whatever, on a metal amino, whatever. Shame on them. So that's the end of the racism segment. Sorry, one more thing I forgot is you probably might have heard about this, but Sweden was planning to ban runes, and luckily that did not happen. But because the whole white supremacy stuff, and a lot of them take interest in Viking runes, they were going to make them illegal, and that I found to be quite disturbing. And it disturbs me because you probably might know I'm a psychic medium. That's the line of work that I come from. And some mediums in my industry know how to read runes. You can buy them in a bag, kind of like this. You buy them and you can read them, kind of like how people read tea leaves and things like that. So I was thinking, oh my God, so many people are being affected, because, a small group of bigots came along and decided to claim those Nordic runes. But from what I know,
unfortunately, that's so common nowadays. Like I remember reading something where apparently this has been co-opted as a neo-Nazi alt-right signal. Apparently, and I'm like, I remember when this meant A-OK, but like, exactly. I don't know. Apparently, like a lot of like far right figures are like using it to like signal to other like far right protesters and volunteers and followers.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
So so that's from what I understand, that did not happen. I think they banned one particular rune because that rune was made official or something like that. But people can still use the runes, which is good, and especially Sweden. I mean, that's part of their heritage. They're like French, so I don't think that was a good thing. But luckily, that didn't go through. But like I said, it bothered me so much. It really disturbed me. Now I want to go into the homophobia segment of this presentation. So one thing I've noticed on Instagram, it's not the worst I'm going to talk about, but it bothers me, it disgusts me a bit, is a lot of heterosexual metalheads treat Instagram like a dating app, whereas those who are homosexual or bisexual are either in the closet or they kind of practice this don't ask, don't tell type of policy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've noticed that a lot. I do follow some LGBTQ plus metalheads. They're very anonymous, they're very private. Whereas, you look at the heterosexual ones, they flaunt their sexuality a lot on Instagram. And I don't quite understand it. I'm always thinking to myself, that's, it's strange, let's put it that way. When people use Instagram and Facebook like a dating site, it really, I don't like it. I block people like that.
Yeah,
So,
I just use it. For me, it's just like, oh, I can share what stupid shit I bought yesterday. Like, I never understood the whole like, oh, I'm a creep into those DMs and I'm like, to show me vinyl, and it's like, no, not at all.
yeah, exactly. It's really strange. And the other thing I want to talk about is a counter argument that I'm so sick and tired of hearing, Robert. They say that, when someone brings up homophobia, they like to say that, oh, no, it's an accepting scene. And the first two they jump to are Gol, however you pronounce it, and Rob Halford. If I have to choose between the two, as a gay man myself, I would prefer Gol because whatever, because he at least likes to talk about his sexuality a bit on Instagram. He's got pictures of his family. I don't idolize someone with a criminal record. He's not a murderer, but he did get charged for assault charges and things like that. So I'm not comfortable with that. But he, but at least he does talk about homosexuality a little bit, at least more than Rob Halford. With Rob Halford, oh my God. I don't hate him. I don't disrespect him. But to me, with Rob Halford, his legacy starts with the music and it ends exactly there. When it comes to human rights matters, and especially around homosexuality, I don't find he delivers. If you go into a gay bar and say Rob Halford, no one's going to recognize that name.
Mm-hmm.
He's not done anything for our community. He always says things like, oh, he's not an activist, not extremely neutral, but someone in that position ought to be. He really... I think, if he were to at least raise a pride flag, if you go on his Instagram, I think it's absolute rubbish. He's got so much stuff that is so nonsensical. He's posting pictures. There's one picture of him attempting to kiss a woman. And so I commented, I was a bit mean. I got about 280 likes on that comment. And I said, I too went through a bi-curious phase, things like that. And I got about 280 likes on that comment. And it was interesting. He's got, very straight acting kind of things, things like, with his trousers down and things like that. So I just find, he doesn't do anything for our community. Even when he went to Russia, first of all, I call it capitalism again. He probably went because he knew he'd make money off that concert and that tour. But, all he said was, oh, his mere presence is a statement. But I'm thinking, mate, Rammstein made a bigger statement. They're straight men and they kissed each other on stage. What have
Oh,
you...
yeah. Like, yeah. And this is like, I feel like maybe his logic is, oh, well, maybe I can do more by just being me and by making my music. That was kind of my thought for a long time. And on some level, I still am like, okay. But at the same time, yeah, there's more he could be doing. With
It's coming from a gay man. To me, Rob Halford does not represent me. I do like Judas Priest, but like I said, his legacy begins and it ends exactly there.
And it's a shame because so much of like the Judas Priest style, the heavy metal fashion, really, not that metal's about fashion or anything, it does come from what Rob Halford was seeing in, like, at least from what I understand, feel free to correct me, was coming from like a lot of like gay clubs in Britain in the 70s, and from what he was seeing from other like gay artists at the time, like Elton John and Freddie Mercury, and to some extent like biker culture as well.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what I know, and people can do their research and get their facts straight. He took a lot of that image from San Francisco BDSM, and believe it or not, I knew a metalhead in the past. I'll be easy on him because I questioned his sexual orientation. It might be a closet case, God knows, find lots of those in that scene. He said that this S&M stuff or that style originated from straight people who were into this, and gay people took it. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it is, but even if it is true,
I don't think so.
So you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Were true.
I don't want to play the stereotype card, but I don't know.
Well, for a reason. And he said, that it came from straight people. Now, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Even if that were true, Rob Halford did not bring it in from that direction. From my understanding, or to my understanding, he took it from the San Francisco BDSM scene, or the gay BDSM scene. So metal fashion does have a root in gay culture. It's call a spade a spade. So what I'm trying to say, to those,
and if I may, even expanding on that note, as we go into the 80s, metal fashion continues to get, there's no other way to put it, I guess, gayer, or at the very least more feminine. Men are wearing less and less clothing. You get the poofed up hair. It's a lot of men wearing makeup. And I don't have an issue with that. I can't speak for other people, but it does kind of become a trend. I mean, even Slayer had a brief period where they were wearing like makeup and a lot of elaborate clothing.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. I forgot to write that down. When they first started, they used to wear eyeliner.
And that was a huge controversy. Like
I heard that they're inspired by Venom, and there are people, handing them paper towels or those napkins so they can remove it. Now, someone who goes through a lot of makeup, that's not how you remove any kind of makeup. That scratches. You have to use, makeup remover or something. That's stupid. But my point is, as a gay man, Rob Halford does not represent me, and I do not feel that he represents the LGBTQ plus community in any shape or form. And I did read an article once where they described him as an activist, and I thought to myself, if he's an activist, what would you call Oprah Winfrey? I mean, she's a straight woman, but oh my God, that woman has been advocating for gay and lesbian rights since the mid-80s, since before he even came out. So, I said, I respect Rob Halford, but he is not a voice for the LGBTQ plus community. I really don't think he is.
Something I wanted to ask you, actually, who would you consider like a great voice for queer and LGBTQ plus people within heavy and extreme music?
Definitely Otep Shamaya. She has definitely done a lot. Oh my God, I feel so ashamed of forgetting this woman's name. I believe it's Melissa from Abzu. Do you remember that case? The
yes, I do. She was fired for being transgender, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, this happened, I believe, in 2018, just as I was coming back from my hiatus. And yeah, I'm going to talk about that. I consider transphobia to be more sexism, but we will get into that. Anyway, so those two are definitely, good representations. But, aside from a little bit of Gull, I'll give it maybe 6 out of 10 generously. I don't feel there are good representations. I feel that the LGBTQ plus community needs more representation in metal because, the thing is, I'll tell you something about metalheads and religious people. The two mirror each other. They really, really do.
There are a lot of disturbing similarities. It's weird.
Disturbing. Yeah, they mirror each other. I mean, I'm going to get into that.
This was actually something I remember talking about this with Philip Tugas last year in the Extremist interview, because he said as well, it's funny that these people talk about how they're like, they don't want to be their parents, but they become their parents. They become absolved in that same hyper conservative mindset. They just apply it to something different, but also the same at the same time.
Same fruit, different pile. Exactly that. So there's Abzu. And then there's the Impaled Nazarene song that came out back in 2000. The one about, I forgot what it's called, but it has to do about, no rights for gay people, things like that. They've not addressed that. I don't know why.
Impaled Nazarene's an extremely sketchy band. I doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're so sketchy.
That's arguably one of their safer songs. Like they've made some fucked up shit.
Not that it's worth remembering, but I think it's called No Rights or something like that. It's all homophobia. It's so ironic that, like I said, metalheads are such hypocrites. They sing that even in the animal kingdom, this is not normal or natural. But at the London Zoo in the United Kingdom, they've got about 6 homosexual penguins.
I was about to say the penguins will disagree with you, but okay, black metal.
Exactly. So, it's just a ton of rubbish, really. And now, as I said, I'm going to be poking at rotting Christ. So what happened, 2 problems out of their many problems. is that in the late 2000s, there was this documentary which you can watch on YouTube and quote me. Um, it's called Black Metal, the Norwegian Legacy. And I'm saying it that way because I think there's a question mark at the end of the title, the Norwegian Legacy. I think that's what it was called. But anyway, you can do your research. And, you know, this Sakis, whatever he's called, was, he said a comment that was very problematic. He was sexist, and he said this thing that I would say is also homophobic and also hypocritical, and I will get into why. They were talking about clean vocals. He said that he doesn't mind when Celtic Frost experimented with it with Jamega Therian, but he doesn't like female vocals in general, or something to that extent, because he finds it a bit gay. And so that's, you know, I'm going to talk about this more in the sexism segment, you know, this I don't like female vocals nonsense. And like I said, I found it problematic because about 10 years prior, you've got the link in the notes, you can link it. I'm not going to read it verbatim because I want people to do their research, but at the very bottom of that interview, or the page rather, he was interviewed because he was talking about some church that was basically criticizing Rotting Christ, and they thought that all the band members are homosexual. And so he said a response to that, and I found that response problematic as well, because the whole response was emphasizing on the band members' heterosexuality, and you don't do that. Let me give you an example. You probably know on my Instagram, I do a lot of trans advocate stuff, you know, because that's a subject I'm very passionate about. Now, if someone thought that I am trans, I would take it as a compliment. I'm not going to go out of my way to prove that I'm cis. I mean, it doesn't matter because my mind for human
it really doesn't.
It doesn't matter at all. So I don't care. You know, if you want to think I'm trans, go for it. I will take it as a compliment because at the end of the day, trans people are one of my tribes. LGBTQ plus, the T stand for trans. They are one of my, or part of my tribe. You know, it's
when when I've more like when people comment on videos like you're gay, you're this, my entire attitude is just now like, okay, sure, I don't really see the problem with that, but thanks for tuning in. Like,
delete.
I just don't understand. Like, I don't know. Maybe it would have been effective when I was 10 and stupid and didn't know any better, but now I'm an adult and I know that gay people are people. I know that trans people are people. So it's just like, okay, I don't know what you expect to get out of me here, but all right.
Exactly. So that, and then so he was emphasizing the band members' heterosexuality, and then he said, this is exactly what he said verbatim, you can read the link. He said he finds it, well, not verbatim, but to that extent, that he finds it really strange or whatever that the church would, you know, accuse straight people of being gay to express their own homophobia. And like I said, it's so hypocritical because how can you accuse the church of that in the late 90s, whenever this situation was, and then about 10 years later you come back and you say you don't like female vocals, you find it a bit gay. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it too, really. So now we've poked Rotting Christ a bit. Now I want to poke a bit on Abzu. Emperor, I think we talked a bit about that already. That show should not have happened back in May with Faust and that whole issue. That should not have happened. And I unfollowed some people on Instagram for supporting that show. But going back to the Abzu issue, which I think is a good segue into the, what's it called, the sexism segment. Oh my God, I was so disturbed. You know, I believe on Instagram, I'm literally the only person who's posted about, I think her name is Melissa, but the fun person who came out as trans. She gave so much to that band. I was never a fan of Abzu, but that's besides the point. She gave so much to the band. She's pretty much the reason that band ever existed. And if I recall correctly, she wanted to put the trans symbol on on the album cover, the forthcoming album, and the band refused, and you know they fired her and things like that. But Abzu's, no more. You know, to my understanding. But you know, I feel very ashamed that I don't remember her name. I mean, I could look it up, but I think if anyone looks up Abzu, they'll know who I'm talking about. And I doubt she'll be watching this video, but my message to her is be yourself. You know, this band did not deserve you. You deserve so much better. and good luck with the rest of your transition, and continue being a good face in metal. That's my
Mm-hmm.
message to her. My message to Rotting Christ, not that they're going to watch this video either, but you know, back in 2017, I believe this was, or some in the 2010s, they were arrested in Georgia. They decided to tour Georgia. I don't mean Georgia in America, I mean the European country.
Yes.
On the Black Sea, borders Turkey. They got arrested for blasphemy and all kinds of Christian laws. And so my message to them is, when you say things like that, you know, that this is gay, this is whatever, go back to that feeling when you were persecuted for playing the music that you love. That's how you make LGBTQ plus people feel when you use language like that. I mean, like I said, I was brought up by a part Turkish, part English mum. I'm pretty blunt. You probably noticed that. I'm very blunt. I can be aggressive. I have a saying: if people are going to be twats, I'm going to be a cunt with teeth. That's my saying. You know, I mean, I can be. You know,
that's awesome. Put that on a t-shirt. That is awesome.
You know, I can be nasty. I'm just like my mother, and she's a redhead on top of that. And naturally, she's a redhead. So you know, I've got her in me. Her, my grandmother, and my great grandmother. But a lot of LGBTQ plus people don't have that type of confidence. They can't speak up. They can't, you know, they don't have this wonderful opportunity of being on Mental Meltdown and, you know, exposing all this stuff. You know, a lot of people aren't privileged to have that. So watch what you say is my message to Sakis and the rest of the Rotting Christ members. And when you're ready, we can move on to the sexism and infiltrating other subcultures, which is going to be the longest one. I've got so much to say about that.
My God. I love the preparation. One thing I'll say is just in general, kind of leeching off that Rotting Christ thing, to metalheads in general, if you say something fucked up, hey, look, I'm not, hear me out. Shit happens. People should just say shit. People are young. People are edgy. People are stupid. Trust me, I've been there. I know it. Just embrace it, acknowledge it, learn from it, build from it. Like, part of why this video is even being done right now is because of the mental health video I did with Jay Morris. And in retrospect, I feel like we kind of screwed up on that. I feel like we missed a good opportunity to have a more meaningful discussion. And that's part of where this conversation comes in, because you made a point of saying, Robert, I don't feel like metalhead is the brotherhood that you guys talk about. So
that's true.
Just to all the metalheads, you know, be open. That's really what it comes down to.
Yes, Robert, I did not disagree with the video. I think both you and our Beansprout, that's what I call him, did a really good job. He knows that I call him the Beansprout. You know, he's commented on that before. And so he makes me think of Beansprouts. He really does. And yeah, you know, I think he did a wonderful job with the video. I think that it's important that if you go in the LGBTQ plus direction, that you need to have that voice represented. Because, I mean, you're a good man. You really, really are. And so when you're a good person, you think everyone else is the same, but unfortunately, a lot of people are masks. It's that's the thing with
and that's also part of my own naivete from my autism. I just kind of see the best in stuff, or at least I try to.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I mean, as a spiritualist, I'm exactly the same. I mean, I don't even see people, I see their souls. So to me, I like to think of everyone as being, you know, this wonderful soul. But unfortunately, it's not quite the case, especially in the metal scene. A lot of strange, mentally challenged people. So carrying on, I do need to give a bit of a discretion, or a yellow light, as I call it, because we're talking about sexism and infiltrating other subcultures, and a lot of this has to do with women. So I do need to make it very clear that even though I'm a feminist, I do not represent women. A woman's voice should always come from a woman, not, you know, a man. So, I mean, as a feminist, I think it's okay to bring awareness to issues and advocate for equality, especially around sexism, and that's exactly what I'm doing. But I'm not a voice for women. I was not given that consent. So, however, though, I did get a letter, which I will read. It's by a woman metalhead who's been in the scene since the early 2000s, and she's been through hell and back. And she was kind enough to give me that letter for, you know, for me to read. The only thing she's asked is she'd like to keep her identity anonymous. So I'm going to, of course, be respectful of that. So
no harm done there whatsoever.
Yeah. So, of course, I'm going to respect her choice, but at the same time, I think it's good that at least some woman's voice is represented. So I have to caution that a bit. So that aside, so carrying on with the male ego and the toxic masculinity, I think you brought up a good point about glam metal. I have this written down, but looking feminine. I believe that's one of the reasons they did not want, glam metal being put under the metal umbrella. I mean, when you listen to it, I mean, of course, it does sound way more hard rock than it does heavy metal for sure. But I don't feel that's the entire picture. I feel that a lot of it has to do with the feminine look. Although, if I'm not mistaken, I think Motley Crue and Twisted Sister, they had more groupies than any other band. So
Yeah, they got around. I mean, with
like,
Motley Crue in particular, reading
yeah.
The Dirt is basically like reading the script to a porn movie, like a really violent, strange porn movie. Like those motherfuckers got around.
Well, and good for them, really. And, so my point is, it's so ironic. I mean, they think, oh, this is so feminine, this is, whatever. But realistically, that's what happened. And
I'm sure most male metalheads wish they could get some the way that early 80s Vince Neil could.
Oh, I'm getting to that. Yeah, so the thing is, I'm not the type of person who likes to give power to gender. But for those out there who are perverted and have to think of that direction, I've got my own interpretation with metal when it comes to masculinity and femininity. When it comes to what I call extreme metal, so Black Death, thrash, and groove, I consider that the more masculine side of the genre. Whereas symphonic metal, so on the lines of, say, Nightwish and Within Temptation and Epic and that stuff, I see it as the more feminine side. That's my interpretation, because this is my light worker side coming out. Literally everything in this universe has at least two sides, at least. Literally everything. So if everything has at least two sides, masculine, feminine, sun and moon, light and dark, however you choose to interpret it, why would metal suddenly be an exception?
Exactly, yeah.
It wouldn't, I mean, even in Goth, it's the same thing. When I look at Gothic rock and death rock, I see that being more the masculine side. Whereas when I look at ethereal wave, that to me comes off very feminine. So every genre has that. Same with punk. If you look at anarcho-punk and hardcore, I find that very masculine. Whereas when you look at ska, that comes off more feminine, I find.
Yeah, and especially when you get into like post-hardcore and pop punk in the late 90s, early 2000s, that's where it's emo. It's like, it's really not. It just doesn't sound like Sex Pistols or Black Flag, and therefore it's scary.
Or Misfits, yeah, exactly. So every genre already has that. So I don't understand why metal would stupidly and magically be an exception. That doesn't make sense to me. And so now that we've talked a bit about that, I want to talk about this Satan stuff, which I'm absolutely allergic to. There's this documentary called Black Hearts. It follows three bands, one from Iran, one from Greece, and one from Colombia. They go to Norway to try to pursue their dreams and becoming black metal bands and artists and things. And there's this ritual. To me, it looked like a black mass. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those black masses.
Vaguely.
I think they're stupid, to say the very least. So basically, I don't know if it's supposed to be a satanic ritual or something like that. Basically, I would just call it a straight fuckfest, a heterosexual fuckfest. That's what I would call it. So basically, there's a scene, they're doing their rituals and they're, they've got a woman, she's naked, and they, have sex and things like that. And apparently I read that in Montreal, here in Canada, there's a scene for the Black Mass stuff. And apparently they like to donate socks to the homeless. How random. So,
okay.
Anyway, the whole bloody thing is so hypocritical.
Good for them.
I don't know, but like I said, I mean, to me, it comes off very hypocritical because how a lot of metalheads are crazy about the Baphomet. Now, as a light worker, of course, I don't, pursue symbols unless I know what they mean. And the Baphomet is neither male nor female; it's intersex. That's why it's got the breasts and it's got the phallus. The thing that points out is supposed to represent a phallus or a penis. And it's supposed to balance a lot of things, but one of those two things is the concept of masculinity and femininity. So going back to the Abzu situation, you fire, a musician for being trans, but hypocritically, you're so into this deity that is
Mm-hmm.
intersex. You see what I mean about hypocrisy?
Yeah, an image that's
So
been co-opted by black
awful.
metal as a whole too.
Well, exactly, and it's so ubiquitous that it's blinding. I mean, I mean, like I said, I mean, and I question these things. It's in my nature to question a lot of things. I'm not a skeptic, but I do question things. I mean, if this is all about Satan, first of all, if Satan did exist, I don't think that he'd be heterosexual. I think he'd be at least pansexual. I don't think that Satan would go against God and then be heterosexual. I think he'd be mirror opposite on everything. I think he'd be pansexual if
Mm-hmm.
anything.
He would represent literally everything that a god would,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that a heavenly Christian god would.
Yeah, or Allah, as I would call it. Yeah, exactly, just something like that. So it's very hypocritical. I find extremely, extremely hypocritical. And so, to me, my opinion about this whole black mass and stuff like that, I find it hypocritical, and it's more of a um, a straight people's fuckfest more than it's about anything. And and I have to make something clear. I'm not an atheist. If I were, then of course people can say, well, that makes sense. It's not in your belief system. But first of all, I am a witch. I'm a spiritualist. I'm a medium. I wrote all this down. I have done many, many seances, rituals, spell casting, even table levitations. I've done table levitations as well, divination readings, and growing up with my mum, because this stuff runs, on our side of the family. I've seen her entranced many times growing up, exchanging. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this, and things like that. This was all part of my upbringing, and then during the last 6 years of my life, I decided to make a career out of it so I can help people.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I'm part of a spiritualist church. I've done the platform mediumship demonstration and, all of those things. And I swear to God, Robert, I have never in my life been in a situation where I've had to remove my clothes and engage in sexual activity, or let alone let someone else do it, for the sake of a ritual. It's never happened.
Yeah, it's
Never
just
happened.
yeah, it's something you see in like horror movies and shit. Like it's not real.
That's
It's
entertainment.
it's yeah.
But my point is going
It,
to the real thing. In my whole entire upbringing, and I've done a lot of rituals, from spell casting and things I don't really feel comfortable talking about, on camera to thousands of people. It's in my blood. It's something that we kind of inherit generation after generation, and in my case, it comes from my mother's side of the family. We've never done that. Even my mother talks about my grandparents and my great grandparents. They were involved in this kind of stuff too, or occult as we call it now, but we've never had to do that, remove our clothes and throw a giant fuckfest for a ritual. And again, why are all those people cis and straight? That's the other thing that I question. Why are all of them cis and straight? It's
yeah, it's really that kind of stuff. Like I think metalheads just kind of look at stuff like that and they're like, oh, it's spooky and provocative and weird. But like again, you really only see this shit in movies, and like movies have points and messages and ideas and concepts, whereas metal it can have those things, but in context of black metal, it's like, yeah, swing your sword and demons and hell, and
it's good for fiction,
it's not the most complex shit.
no, of course not. And when it comes to, like I said, real life scenarios and situations, I don't get it. So, the other thing I want to briefly talk about, so so we don't waffle for too long, is the word or the term all female band. I'm so tired of hearing this. Treating the woman like
Yeah,
mother.
it is such a useless label that just doesn't mean anything.
No,
Female
exactly.
fronted, female sing, all female. We
Yeah,
don't do that for any. We don't say all male. We don't say all male fronted. Like
yeah,
it's a fucking band, dude. And and
exactly.
and I
And
feel like as of late, I kind of feel like we're getting a little bit off topic, maybe, but I kind of feel like as of late, people are sending me these all female bands and going, "Wow, look at this! It's amazing." And
yeah,
I don't want to shit on these artists, but if you guys are loving them just because they're all female, then you're loving them for the wrong
and I
reasons.
hate to surprise people, but women, not that I'm trying to reinforce there are two genders or many genders, but focusing on the two mainstream ones, women have the same body parts as men to play music. They've got diaphragms, they've got fingers and hands to hold and play instruments, pluck
Mm-hmm.
strings, they've got brains to imagine things. Women are physically not that different from men.
Yeah. And we don't do this with any other genre. Like there's no female fronted country. There's no female fronted like psychedelic or
no, not that I'm aware of, at least. And like I said, I mean, it's not like a caterpillar and a giraffe. I mean, if a caterpillar I can hold in my hand, whereas a giraffe will not fit in this flat. It's not like that. I mean, women and men have a lot of similarities. And of course, this whole thing about I don't like female vocals and Nervosa, like I said, when they put out their new album, I couldn't watch any reviews. I watched yours because I knew you'd handle it really well. I liked the way that you did so, but
yeah, I feel like, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying. I feel like a lot of people, no disrespect to Nervosa, but I feel like a lot of people were just like, all girls, hot. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, sure, but as far as the music's concerned, there's really not much to really talk about here.
Like Vader, I find to a large extent they sound like Vader. I find they kind of walk that line between.
Yeah. And even the same thing with this new Crypta album that everyone's talking about. I'm like, yeah, don't get me wrong, it's not terrible, but I'm like, I'm not seeing what's so mind-blowing about this. I think y'all are just so in love with the women that you want to love the band.
Exactly. I think that both of them are great bands. I just don't understand why is it the gender that everyone wants to put under a microscope and zoom in on it. It's so perverse, in my opinion. And it's disgusting.
And ironically, a lot of these same people will go, "Oh, WAP, that's disgusting," and I'm like, "Fuck off."
Yeah. Well, and I did talk to a person once, a really nice person. I won't, reveal his identity, but he meant well. He said that when he mentioned all-female band in regards to Nervosa, he said that his goal was to, make them more popular, just kind of make them, more appreciated, whatever word it was he used. And I thought to myself, okay, so you want to shed light on this band, okay, fine. Then how come when it comes to Cynic and Judas Priest, we don't say the LGBTQ plus fronted band?
Yeah, honestly,
on that demographic. So dispelling the mist, because I don't want this video to be too long. I do want to talk about the infiltrating of other subcultures, because this does fall under the sexism stuff a little bit. I do notice a lot of female metalheads seem to be divided too. You've got what I call the penis envy group, where they try to catch up to their male metalheads or male counterparts and try to be the same, dress the same, act the same, like the same bands, be very misogynistic or internally misogynistic. They like to not like female fronted bands because the males don't like it and they want to act tough. So I do see a lot of those.
Even here in Toronto, I've seen a lot of that. There was an incident 2015, we went to the Mayhem Festival, the one with like Slayer, King Diamond, Code Orange, Jungle Rot, bunch of bands. And I was there with a friend. He was, 18 years old, black guy. He's just starting to get into heavy music. And there was a woman there who seemed really puzzled that he would be there, like genuinely like concerned and scared. So she kind of walks up trying to spark conversation, trying to be friendly. And I don't really know why, but she's just like, "Is this your first metal show?" And he's like, "No, I saw At the Gates and Converge like 2 months ago." And she's like, "We'll pretend you're one of us for today." And that comment has stuck with us for a while. Like, we're just kind of like, what? For today? One of us? I don't, where do I even begin deconstructing that statement?
Sounds like some kind of cult. You see what I was talking about earlier in the video about some metalheads? They think that when they discover the genre and grow in it, they've reached nirvana. I mean, bloody hell. So, like this, I find there's that group of women, and then there's the alternative trophy chicks. I'm sure you know that term. It's an old one. And those are the ones I've got a lot of issues with. Those are the ones who infiltrate other subcultures. They usually like to listen to melodic black metal, like Karach Angren and rubbish like that. And you see them on Instagram. Like I said, I block at least 3 of them a week because they try to follow me. Hashtag goth, gothic girl, gothic princess, gothic queen, everything.
Yeah.
Gothic, and they don't listen to no goth music, not even Joy Division nor The Cure. And I do have a woman friend, she's goth and a feminist as well, and I talked to her on Instagram, and even she pointed this out. Zagan is her name, and she wrote to me once and she said, "Adam, I don't understand. What is it when I look at the goth hashtag, all I see are bloody female metalheads? What's this about?" And I had to be honest with her. I said, it's because they're posers. Going back to the bisexual emo boys in the 2000s, they got bullied, even though they did like some metal music. whereas these girls are appreciated.
I feel like throughout the 80s and into the 90s,
Yeah.
you start to see like a lot of gothic imagery and aesthetic kind of creeping in through artists that aren't necessarily goth, but definitely have elements of it. Like you could say Marilyn Manson, to some extent, some Nine Inch Nails, Fear Factory.
They come from industrial,
oh, absolutely. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like there's enough of that influence there that it starts to creep further into metal.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to the 2000s, goth, as far as metalheads are concerned, is basically eyeliner and black t-shirts.
And Nightwish and Cradle of Filth.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's like, okay, there are like arguably some influences there, but like I wouldn't put this on a playlist with like The Cure or Joy Division or anything like that.
No, not at all. You know, they're not, because goth comes down to 7 subgenres: post-punk, gothic rock, which comes from post-punk, death rock, dark wave, ethereal wave, and some argue neoclassical dark wave. That one's a bit debatable, but that's a different subject. So my point is, they don't listen to any goth music, and it's so ironic because they think that it's a way to get in touch with their femininity, and goth has no gender. Especially when you go over to the death rock side of it, goth has always been about gender bending. You find cis straight men in skirts, you find all kinds of women with their heads shaved, the death hawks and things like that, and you can't really tell who's who sometimes. For example, the one group that I'm involved with, out of 6 people, we've got 6 different demographics. I'm cis gay. We've got a cis gay man. We've got a cis bi woman. We've got a cis straight woman. We've got 2 people that are non-binary. One of them is heterosexual, one is asexual, and we've got a trans lesbian. So within that little demographic, that little group, look how many demographics we've already got. That's the goth and alternative scene since the time of the Batcave, since even going back to David Bowie. It's always been about different kinds of people, and sometimes we look the same. You can't tell. Sometimes you can't even tell who's cis and who's trans. When you go into the goth scene, or alternative, but especially the goth scene, it's always been about gender bending, fashion over the top, things like that. It's always been there. It's ingrained in us.
You bring up a great point with David Bowie too. I mean, the definition of an androgynous musician, like to this day, it's still debated where he actually, like, what he was sexually. And my whole thing is like, you know what? I don't really care. He was for the record. But I'm on some level, I'm kind of like, I don't really care, because that's not the point of his music. He just wanted to like create weird shit and blur all those lines, and I don't know.
And that ended up influencing goth, whereas symphonic metal, on the other hand, does not have that influence. And also, when I talked about men in skirts, as a point I forgot to say, I'm not talking about those stupid European kilts that Ensifurum wear and those kinds of bands. No, I'm talking actual women's skirts from the women's section that they buy, do a bit of DIY, and wear them. You will find a lot of that in the goth scene. That's normal for us. So so again, going back to this mindset, this whole symphonic metal, melodic black metal nonsense, first of all, it's not alternative, let alone goth. And like I said earlier, it's still metal. It's just another side of the genre. That's all it is. You've got the thrash death black side, and you've got the symphonic side. It's the same. We've got the doom side and the prog side and the traditional side, like speed metal and heavy metal. It's a genre. It's got different sides. Just a different side of the genre. And that's one thing I've noticed about these women, especially on Instagram. All of them are cis. All of them are white women under the age of 30, under 120 pounds. And I'm pretty sure all of them are heterosexual, with the occasional bi-ish one here or there. And, like I said, it's just not the goth mindset. And as I said earlier, it's amazing how many of these men appreciate them, whereas in the 2000s, they bullied a lot of those emo boys. I mean, such bastards, to say the least. And I'm close to the end of my notes. Another thing I was going to say is, it's ironic. I mean, how many times have I said that word? How many metalheads hate rap music? I hate rap music, but I hate it because of the way it sounds. But a lot of them hate the subculture, when rap music actually has a lot of similarities. The sexism towards women, the female body, that kind of lyrics.
Oh yeah. Rap is I mean I rap is a very problematic genre. I think it's better now, but it's still got a
Yeah,
lot of work to do.
yeah.
Less so than metal, but still enough work that it needs to be brought up.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking back to bands like Cradle of Belfagor, Dark Funeral. Dark Funeral actually have a song about this whole gothic girl fantasy. It's the song is good, but the lyrics are ridiculous. Even Carpathian Forest, I would Gorgoroth, but it's actually Carpathian Forest. All kinds of sexuality and Satan and all this orgies and stuff. And like I said earlier, I mean, not that I have anything against those bands, but if Satan existed, he would not be heterosexual. So if this is a way to rebel, I don't think it's working. First of all, the Catholic Church is very powerful. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon,
Mm-hmm.
whether you like it or not. And secondly, I feel that it's not really about rebellion. I feel it's more expressing, subconscious Plutonian male heterosexual desires that are kind of taboo.
I kind of feel like it's more just like we're just trying to provoke, and we know that if we have this kind of image and this kind of look with
Yeah,
this kind of song, every white mom in America is going to be pissed off as hell, which means all their kids are going to buy our albums.
yeah.
Like, I don't even really think they're thinking that much about what's going into the music. They're just like, it looks spooky, therefore it will sell. I mean, it goes back, and the proof is in the pudding. I mean, the Filthy 15, those songs all sold like fucking hotcakes because they were deemed controversial. Venom, Madonna, Wasp, they're all like, oh, the best thing that ever happened to us was like we were put on the Filthy 15. Controversy sells. The
Exactly.
difference is back then, those artists were just making shit and trying to make weird shit. And now it's just like, we know that the image of Satan and we know that tits will sell. We know it. We have the research to prove it.
Yeah, it's about marketing at the end of the day. And thinking that many pages of hypocrisy is not enough. There's one more. It's about the anti-Kardashian sentiments. I'm not sure if you've seen this T-shirt, but it's mimicking the first Exodus album, and it says "Kill all the Kardashians." It's such a T-shirt.
I think Gary Holt even has like, and I don't hate Gary Holt. I think in general he's one of the more reliable kind of older metalheads,
Well,
but he
Luke,
does put out those shirts, and it's like
it
he's
doesn't make any sense. And I mean, like I said, the sub people in the subculture call the Kardashians posers because there's this whole T-shirt controversy, which I do have opinions on. I'm not saying I disagree 100%, but what I'm saying is you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't be criticizing the Kardashians, but you're doing all those things that I just talked about.
yeah.
It's stupid. And also, since we're talking about Exodus, what's his face? Luke, the one who sang on Shovel-Headed Kill Machine.
Luke. Rob Dukes.
Rob Dukes. Okay, there was something to do with a Duke or a Luke. Anyway, yeah, when I saw Exodus back in 2009, it was with creator Belfagor, Epicarian, and Warbringer. He announced on stage that he hates Middle Eastern people just for the fuck of it. He said, I hate Middle Eastern people, pure hate.
Jesus.
And being half Middle Eastern myself, I thought, well, you look quite intelligent. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Not. Anyway, so, it's like I said, nonsense like that. So, and then also the last thing I want to talk about again is the whole pagan cultural appropriation, singing about, pagan stuff. Like Corpiclani and Ensiferum and that kind of stuff. And sometimes I wondered, do these people even practice what they write, or is this some kind of rebellious theme to spook out the Christians?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's just like, this is just face value provocative bullshit. We're just like, we know that this will scare people, therefore we're going to do it.
And it doesn't do anything. Now, I do want to read that letter. Now, this is coming from a woman metalhead. And like I said, I have to keep her identity anonymous because that's what she's asked. So I'm going to read it. It's not too long. So she goes, being a woman or femme in metal has a lot of unspoken rules. The only problem is nobody knows the rules because they are different in every single setting, and no matter what approach you take, there will be a gaggle of men who want to pull you down from whatever spot you occupy, whether you play an instrument or know things about music aside from who the guitarist of some obscure band from the 70s is. And if you know about the stuff, about stuff like theory and production and anything on the technical side, unless you're a supermodel, prepare to be treated like a pariah because feedback is not wanted. And we usually get broken into two categories. visible and hypersexualized. And it really feels like there's no in between. I didn't really feel hypersexualized. I'm more the nerdy wallflower friend, not the hot girl who most people don't notice at a conventional concert. Did I want to be? Sure, sometimes. When that's appealing attention, I'm sure it's something a lot of fans do. It's social inclusion by way of your appearance, and it makes perfect sense since our society puts so much impetus on appearance. I have friends who got bothered all the time, who get stuck talking to guys who want to ogle them and ask basic, ridiculous questions just to have a few moments to have some kind of contact, and it's so weird. They want women to put themselves on display and feel a huge sense of entitlement, and then my friends get to feel gross all night. Looking back on my looking back on my time participating in the metal subculture, I feel more like a babysitter helping my guy friends with their hopes and ideas rather than spending time on mine. I took photos either for free or as a barter and rarely got credit compared to metal photographers who are men. They're another deal entirely, and it's tiresome and pointless. The system of entitlement is rampant, and the main feature is whatever musician is talented enough to play well and also get a following. Even if they're terrible, they will have friends show up and get drunk and party like there's nothing else to do. This extends to so many things, maybe not as ridiculous as the excess in the 80s, but it will pop up now and again. They live by no real code aside from Peter Pan syndrome and can only give a blank look when they get called on the lack of maturity. There's only so much mansplaining and ridiculous behavior you can take when you just want to be part of something that revolves around something you truly enjoy. In short, it's a boys' club full of overgrown children who might be able to write some good songs, but a lot of them just do it because they don't want to grow up, or they did and realized how much it sucks. I used to really want to write music and sing and tour and travel and be in a band. It was a dream I had for many, many years until finally I realized that I was never going to get there on my own.
Oh my God.
Sorry for reading a bit quickly, just trying to
No, it's damn, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's her experience.
If this person is by chance watching, I'm very sorry you had that experience. I wish there was something I could do to change that for you. I know I can't. But I wish there was, because that's just horrible. I don't even know how else to put it. It's just horrible.
Well, you know what, Robert? I'm going to disagree with you briefly. I think just by making this video, you're making a difference.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Truth be told. And I want to conclude on a positive note, because obviously I've, taken metalheads and blown them to smithereens. I swear sometimes that demographic, I've had it up to here. I really, really have.
I look forward to a flurry of angry comments. I look forward to it.
I'm just hoping they're not anonymous, but I bet you they will be. So like I said,
do you want to make a sequel where we do the drinking game to the comment section if it gets really bad?
Why not? Why not? And yeah, so I've got 3 songs that I want to read lyrics to. And when I say songs, I don't mean the entire songs. I mean one stanza from each song.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, reason I want to do this is I want to remind people that obviously I made the metal scene look terrible, which it is to some extent, but there is the light side. There's a silver lining around each cloud, as that saying goes. So I want people to see that. And there's one band that I want to talk about briefly. That's Delane. They've got a song called The Others. And so I encourage people to listen to that song because it's all about being, anti-homophobic, anti-racist and all that stuff. So it's not that I'm saying, those songs are too little, too late. I'm saying later is better than never. I want to read a stanza from Creator's song Side by Side. When I first heard that album 3 years ago, I own it actually. Oh my God, this song, when I heard it, I said, where was this song in the 2000s? Would have made my upbringing so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
There's Side by Side to eternity and beyond, side by side as we crush homophobia, side by side, and we'll never let the shame turn our vision to ice, and I'll remain by your side.
I think a bunch of uptight thrash metal nerds are about to learn, wait a minute,
That's
creator? Political?
I've got CD. I was really happy they did that. I mean, there's one thing stupid that did happen, but again, I'll put on blinkers. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they didn't see it. It's on Instagram. I tagged them and I quoted the song and I put out my creator CDs with the pride flag. They didn't like it, but they did like another post that I shared of, so I don't know how to say his name, the frontman.
Millie Petroza.
That one. And he talked about, anti-racism, but the racism in the metal scene. So I quoted, well, not quoted, but, talked about that and I shared the link, and that one the band ended up liking. But
I think that might just be because like the band's, it's whoever's in charge of these accounts that, like, I had the Halloween interview. Halloween was happy to share that, but the album review, they were like, sometimes it's just up to whoever's like controlling that account.
That's true. And sometimes when it comes to social media, the band is not directly involved. They have an assistant or someone from the label or something like that. So I'm not pointing the finger at the band. I'm pointing at whoever's in charge. I'm pointing like this. No fingers point back at me.
Yeah, I think Creator have proven time and time again, especially these last few years, that they are very much allies.
Yeah, good. So I just hope that, or I wished that they would have liked the post, but whatever, the fact they published the song means the world. And there are two, again, really short stanzas that I want to quote. One is by a German power metal band called Wizard, and I've liked them since 2007, one of my very first power metal bands, actually. Not many people know of them, and I really like them. They've got this song called Gladiators of Steel, and it's on the album Bound by Metal. And so I want to quote them. They sing, "It doesn't matter what you wear, it doesn't matter who you are. The only thing that matters is that there's metal in your heart."
Hell yeah, I can get behind that.
So the reason I'm quoting these lyrics, I want to remind metalheads of their roots, what this scene is really about. That's what I'm trying to remind them. Yes, we've got the bigots, but they're doing the wrong thing. Good people like this do exist. And I also want to quote Decadence. I talked to you a little bit about that band, that thrash metal band that I like. I have loved this band since 2009, and I've only talked to one fan in 11 years, and this person is actually another goth metalhead hybrid. How interesting.
A very specific demographic for Decadence.
I mean, but again, it's a sexism. I mean, people, it's so strange. I grew up with it in the 2000s with Arch Enemy. A woman can sing like this? Of course they can.
I love that people are still like, anytime someone mentions Arch Enemy, it's like they've been around for what, 25 years now? This should not be a big deal. It really shouldn't.
Bloody hell. And
I will say this though, and I don't take from this story whatever you will, but when I saw Arch Enemy opening for Amon Amarth, when At the Gates was on stage, it was a pretty neutral crowd, just like a mix of people who were like, yeah, party. And then Arch Enemy comes on, and I swear to God, there must have been like 10,000 girls that showed up out of the blue. The room literally smells like rose and lavender. And then Amon Amarth starts playing, and it's a bunch of big, sweaty dudes who all reek of onions and piss. And some of them are wearing kilts, and I'm just like, wow, what
I don't understand about metalheads. Why is it so binary?
So I was just like, wow, this is incredible. I'm getting like a full, is At the Gates truly the true neutral band here? Because that's weird.
Let's admit it. I think it was Grand Magus that were really the life of the party. So about the song, the song is called, I forgot what it's called.
I'm an At the Gates fanboy, so I'm gonna have to slightly disagree with you.
That's I'm a fan too. I mean, I've seen them twice actually. Yeah, so going back to this Decadence song, it's from their second last album, Undergrounder. It goes, "We are everyone, we are no one, united as one, divided by none." Which kind of reminds me of Arch Enemy's song Nemesis. One for all for one, we are one, Nemesis. Very similar thing. So the reason I'm concluding, on this positive note is I want people to know that, metal is not as bad as I made it out to be. There are good people like Robert, and but these things do exist. That's all I want. All I want is people to talk about it. I had a counselor in the past who said, the more we talk about an issue, the sooner we can resolve it. Recognizing the problem is the first step to solving a problem.
Exactly.
If people stop, being biased and mortified and skeptical and all of that stuff, and just acknowledge it. These things exist. As I like to say, my skin doesn't lie. I've had these experiences first.
Yes. And it just because you personally, the viewer, may not have experienced the things that me and especially Adam have talked about, that doesn't mean that they still haven't happened. It just means that you're lucky enough for a multitude of reasons to not have experienced them.
I call it privilege, exactly. And, that's also one thing, I want to briefly touch on. I mean, when it comes to the homophobia stuff, as well as a bit of the racism stuff, like I said, I've got a lot of firsthand experience. But that's why when it came to the sexism stuff, I had to turn on some yellow lights. It's because I'm not a woman. I've not had those experiences first. I mean, I do know women have experienced them. I mean, I've got one friend, for example, who was molested in Montreal. She was at a festival and she was watching, I can't remember, I think it was a death metal band. And, some twat came from behind her. You can pretend that I'm her. And then he groped her like this to start her breasts. And I'm so proud of her. You know what she did? She turned around, punched him in the face.
Yep.
Yep. You know how in Canada we have this strange thing. Oh, I said we with Canada. That's the first time in my life. The strange thing a lot of people say. It's two wrongs don't make a right. You've heard that one growing up. Yeah, I don't always believe that. Sometimes it's true, but not.
I don't know. I respectfully disagree. I don't know.
I mean, like I said, it depends on the situation. But
yeah,
situation, and I've told her this more than once. I'm so proud of her. She did not, act like a victim. I mean, she is the victim, but she owned it. It's so very metal. I would agree.
Oh, absolutely. That's metal as fuck.
Absolutely. She looked at him and she kind of was thinking, you're going to turn me into the victim. You're going to be the victim. Punch.
Yeah.
I should do it this ring instead. Punch.
Yeah, get a little extra damage.
Yeah, exactly. And oh my God, I'm so proud of her. I really, really am. I feel she did the right thing. Yeah, she did the right thing. I mean, when I had the men pushing me around back in 2008, it's not that I was afraid of them. I do know how to protect myself, but like I said, I did not want to be escorted. At a festival, it's different. You can get away with more. But at a concert in a venue, and this venue, they don't do metal concerts anymore. It's called the Croatian Cultural Center. It's owned by a Croatian family, and I actually have a Croatian friend whose cousin, I think, is a manager there. And yeah, it's a very small venue, so if something happens, it's not going to take long for it to be noticed. There's another experience I had. I saw this Goth band called Pink Turns Blue back in 2019. They're a band that I really love listening to. They're post-punk. When you go to a post-punk or death rock concert, you'll find goths and punks because we're related. We kind of share a musical DNA. Post-punk and death rock count as both goth music and punk music, as far as I know. And, some person outside the scene decided to show up, and he molested a woman in a very similar way in front of her boyfriend. Now, imagine that happening, in front of a crowd of punks. They were beating him up in front of Pink Turns Blue as they were playing.
God, that is awesome.
I think it's punk as fuck. It really, really is. Punk's
yeah. And that's the weird thing is that when I go to concerts with my girlfriend, Anna, not recently because, COVID, but in the past when we've gone to shows, I've kind of had to be careful to make sure she's not alone, if she's at the bar or if she's at the merch table or something, because someone will come up and be like, hey, what's up? Is that a Metallica shirt? Name 5 songs, whatever. I'm going to try and do this now. And I've had to kind of insert myself and be like, hey, what's going on here? Who are you?
You have to stand up for her. And that's something, I'm not sure if you're aware of Septic Siren, Liz. She's talked a lot about that in the past. Oh my God, I love Septic Siren actually a lot. And she's talked about that kind of sexism in metal a lot, and people always dismiss her. And there were metalhead men, those Beavis and Butthead types, that were thick enough to actually make a video mimicking her and saying all kinds of nasty things about her. She's encountered a lot of that, and she says that being a woman, men walk up to her and say, do you know this band? Do you know that band? Or they think she's a poser basically. And I've heard about that happening with a lot of women metalheads. But as I said, because I'm not a woman, I can't represent. I don't have that right. I can only bring awareness to it. And as far as I know, I've had women metalheads tell me that yes, they've experienced that. So it does exist.
Oh yeah, I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
There was I'm gonna name something specific. We were at a cattle decapitation show here in Toronto with Revocation, Full of Hell. It was Halloween night, so it was a big party. Hands down, one of the coolest shows I've ever been to. Not that that really matters in context of this. And there was this guy that we had met beforehand. He was friends. He was a friend of a friend, and he wanted to tag along. And we're like, yeah, sure. We're going out for dinner beforehand, and then we're going to the show. Go out for drinks after. There came a point in the night where he's getting a little bit too close to Anna, like uncomfortably close. So I kind of like stick my hand in between, and I'm just like, you need to back up a little bit. And he's just kind of like, dude, don't. I'm not. Don't take it. I'm trying to get some. I'm like, I know. That's why I'm doing this. Piss off.
Good. No, I respect you for that. That's, people have to stand up for themselves.
Honestly, I wouldn't. Even if Anna wasn't my girlfriend, I would have done that. I don't like seeing that shit. I just don't fucking like that.
Yeah, there's one experience I had when I saw King Diamond. You notice all my problems are at the metal concerts, never at the goth concerts. When I go to walk out with phone numbers and emails, when I go to the metal concerts, people like to bugger off. But anyway, there's one experience I had. There was a woman metalhead. There were a group of boys that decided they wanted a mosh pit, and this happened not when King Diamond was playing, when Idle Hands were playing. Now they're called Onto Others. They were playing, and they decided that they wanted to mosh, and they were wearing those Danzig and Misfit t-shirts. So basically, what I'm trying to say is they flex more than they've got. They
the typical Misfits fan, really.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just hit puberty. And, so they were moshing and they kept hitting her, accidentally. And she was getting really frustrated and she was trying to record. So what I ended up doing is I pulled her aside. I said, here, come in front of me. I was standing really close to the gate, whatever it's called. So I pulled her, close, and I got to stand in front of me. And every time they, come close, I would, put my hand out like this and they would bounce back off. Now, I am quite skinny, but I do have strength. It's something I've learned. So I'm able to make him go away. And and then at the end, at the end of the concert, she came to me and she said, thank you for protecting me. And I couldn't, I don't want to cry, but I couldn't accept that. I said, no, honey, no, you can't thank me for that. I said, it's the right thing to do. People, we have to look after each other. That's the thing to do. And yeah.
Ending this on a nice note, I think. This was how long have we even been recording? Like 2 hours? It feels like it.
Oh, really? We said. No,
what time do we start? Just after 12?
9:30. Well, he'll be 9:30, so that would be just after 12. So it'd been an hour and a half. It's been great.
I'm not complaining, for the record. It has been wonderful.
Me neither. And and especially with a lot of the bashing that I've done, I think people are going to watch the entire video.
Oh yeah, I look forward to people attempting to dissect your points and just being like, well, how about this one instance? And we get to play that whataboutism game, which is my favorite.
Well, what I'm really tired of, and like I said, I've had it up to here. It's people playing victim. Cis het white men that have had the world handed to them, and all they want to do is play victim. But Robert, thank you again so much. It's been a pleasure, and I think you did the right thing. Thank you so much for making this video and bringing my voice. I hope I did a good job. I hope I tried.
I think you did a great job, and you're very welcome. And also thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
And actually, to everyone at home, I would like to end this off somewhat officially by shouting out some LGBTQ plus and queer metal bands, not just Judas Priest, not just Cynic, although check out Cynic if you haven't, even though they're more prog rock, because there's a lot of cool stuff out there. I mean, there's more work to be done with representation, but there is some cool stuff. Like there's Vile Creature, who were just nominated for a Juno Award. They play a lot of really cool, like funeral doom, sludge metal, post-metal kind of fusion shit. There's Liturgy, who I know the black metal nerds hate Liturgy. I don't care. Yeah, the music's kind of artsy fartsy, but it's also very intriguing, very immersive, very fascinating. Thank You Scientist. Their drummer came out pretty recently as a transgender woman. They play like a very exciting kind of it's almost like Protest the Hero, Coheed and Cambria style prog metal, but with like horns and a full brass section.
Yeah.
Cloud Rat, Feminaz Ghoul. There's so much cool shit out there. Those are just some of the bands I'm thinking of. If anyone else has more, please shout them out in the comments.
Yeah, that's good. And speaking of the comments, I will be watching and reading them. So if people have any questions that they want to ask me directly, comment them, and I will reply. He will notice.
Oh, I'm sure you'll be all over that video, which is good because I imagine other people will as well. We can get on top of this shit.
Yeah.
Any final comments or words out there for the fine people at home?
Well, be kind to each other. Everyone matters.
Hell yeah. I think that's a solid place to officially end this off, ladies and gentlemen, and other. I got to start saying that more often. Yeah. I don't know. Well, just people in general, like.
Well, there's an LGBTQ plus video or channel that's operated by a queer person from New Zealand. She always says, "Greetings, guys, gals, and non-binary pals."
I like that. I might start using that. I might start using that. I like that a lot.
Queer Kiwi, that's her name.
So thank you, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, for your time, for your support, for your patronage. I look forward to civil, honest, genuine discussion. I also look forward to talking to a bunch of goddamn black metal nerds with their hand in their pants. Regardless of how it goes, it was a pleasure to do this. It was a pleasure to have you here. Click this button right here. I think it might be right here. I'm not sure how the camera's going to make it work. That's hopefully the subscribe button. And make sure you check out Adam's Instagram and check out the stuff that he's doing as well. And yeah, happy Pride and have a fantastic fucking day. Did not plan for this to be in Pride, by the way. I was just like, oh, it's just pure coincidence. So while we're here, happy Pride.
As I always say, everything happens for a reason, all in divine timing.
Absolutely. Y'all have yourselves a fantastic fucking day, ladies and gentlemen, and others. Apologies, I'm going to say it again. Have yourselves a fantastic fucking day, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Boom. I like that. I'm going to officially start using that. Yeah. Cheers, folks.
Cheers.